welcome to another episode of Radiorama, and today we have this General Electric radio slash phonograph. I sure have worked on a lot of General Electrics, but I haven't worked on one of these. And I'm going to guess it's a post-war set because that dial sure looks familiar. It looks like what they put on their post-war 1946 sets. I don't know if it works or not. Feel kind of bad because it actually came from one of our members who I guess needs to move to a smaller apartment or something, so he couldn't keep all his radios. So this is one of his. So let's try it out. It's pretty lightweight. I'm going to assume it probably does not have a power transformer. So here it goes on. Put it on phono. That's not even moving. There's a button to turn it off and on. I don't know. Let's see. So far I'm getting nothing out of it. What's the matter, Winky? You want food? Okay, it appears to not have any life whatsoever. There's any tubes back here. I don't see anything. I'm assuming it's just a regular plain Jane AA5 chassis or something like it inside, so let's take the back off. Well. Not only does exterior bits of this thing look familiar, but so does the guts. This is the same chassis you'd find in a General Electric 444. If you don't know what that is, anyone that collects radios in the US, you've seen it a million times. It was a very popular radio. It's a Bakelite, and it's the one where if you look at the numbers, they wash right off. So it looks familiar because it is familiar. Very General Electric of them. Let's just take a tabletop radio and make a phonograph out of it. Same speaker, same chassis. The most basic of record players ever known to man. So I'm going to unplug everything. First of all, it didn't seem like there was anything happening on this at all. I just want to make sure that is actually the case. Whoa! I'm not sure it worked that time. Maybe I hadn't plugged it in properly. That is filter caps. All right, I dropped the phone. Sorry. That's filter caps, and you guys that have worked on these long enough know exactly what that is. Sometimes if the radio doesn't work, that's what I prefer to hear. That means I know what needs to be done versus if it doesn't work, where it's like, okay, get it working first, then we'll figure out why it's not working. The other thing too is I recommend you change these. They put these C7 Christmas lights up in there for the dial, and they only have about maybe a 100-hour life expectancy, so not very long. Let's get this sucker out of here. Well, by virtue of it being shoved up in that box, it's been mostly protected, and if you ever wanted to see kind of what a lot of these AA5s looked like out of the factory as far as the chassis goes, look at that metal. It's like shiny factory new metal. Now, what we heard earlier was obviously the filter capacitors, which is this guy right here. So let's take a look underneath and see. And unsurprisingly, we've got all factory capacitors, and there's a ton of them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 capacitors. It's a decent quantity. Now, it's important to understand that this is a floating chassis set, and one of these capacitors is the other side of the AC line, and I would assume it's probably the capacitor going here because it's going to ground. You know it's a floating chassis set because that brown thing right here that you can barely see, that's the underside of the electrolytic, and that spacer, that brown stuff, that's a phenolic spacer. And that means that the negatives of that are floating. This right here is probably the other side of the AC line. It's huge. It's a great way for you to get a nice zap. That'll have to be reduced down to a significantly smaller number. We'll get that in a little bit. Before I do anything, I'm going to clean up the controls just a little bit. Figures might as well. I got this shit out here. Now, what I'm going to do is replace all the paper capacitors and then get to the electrolytics underneath. This is not rocket science. This is 1/10 of a microfarad, 600 volts. This one says 0.5, 600 volts, and so on. You just replace like with like, and if you don't have exactly the same values, fine. These are not what I would call precision instruments by any means. And if you don't have an 05, and let's say you have like an 04, an 03, or even an 06 or whatever, it's fine. It'll work just fine. And sometimes to make things go a little bit quicker, I'll just kind of roll these over and see like what the values are. Then I can go ahead and preemptively grab a handful. And I get a feeling there's going to be a shit ton of 05s in here. There's 1, 2, 3, 4. Probably another one up here. 5. What is this puppy here? Oh, come on. 1/10 of a microfarad. So I've got a couple of 1/10 of microfarads, even though that one, forget about that. That's going to be replaced with a different one. So I'm just going over here and wholesale recap this whole sucker, because what I'm really curious about is whether or not the cartridge is any good in this 78 record player, which I kind of doubt it. It's a Rochelle salt crystal cartridge, and they're almost always bad. I'm assuming this one's bad, but I won't know for sure until I get the this thing rebuilt, so that it won't, I can actually see the performance of it, because right now it won't do anything. All right, well, here we go. It's all recapped. Here's the electrolytic capacitors under here. This is a kind of a dense chassis. Anyway, here is the 2 chassis cap, and here is the across the line cap. That's pretty critical, because this used to be a huge value, and now I've shrunk it down to 0.01 microfarads. Now, I don't know if this is going to work or not. I just shotgunned the whole thing, so it's time to hook it up and see what happens. All right, here's my jerry-rigged way. Let's see if this is going to do anything. I don't even have the antenna hooked up. All right, let's see. It's not going to draw much. You know what? I haven't even got my thing hooked up. Sorry. Well, never mind. I just went for broke, which is what I'm not supposed to do. I think that's a record player setting, maybe. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that cartridge is shot. I mean, I can hear it. That's just the needle ricocheting. Oh well, I guess I'll have to replace the cartridge. This is why I have all these things. These are 78 conversion kits. So, alright, well, here is the underside of the tone arm. Very typical of an old salt crystal cartridge. Anyway, I'm going to take that needle out of there before I... Fuck. God damn it. Do that. Alright. Never mind. Anyway, I'm going to take it out of here and save these screws. So what I'm going to do is replace it with one of these guys. It's a kind of replacement modernized cartridge. I don't know anything about cartridges, but my friend Kyle said it would work. Here's its mounting plate, so you can adapt it on there. So I hope that'll work. Okay, well, I'm not proud of the job that I did of putting that cartridge on there, but I want to try it out to see if it makes any noise. Uh-oh, why is it not turning on? Let's see, I can't remember. Why is that not turning on? see. That's clearly radio. Whoa! Now, why do I have no motor power? Alright, not sure what's going on. I'm surprised at how well that works. That's amazing. That said, I don't really like the wiring that's in that thing. I think I have one more of those cartridges somewhere. So let's see if maybe I can redo that one that I just did. Otherwise, it works fine. In fact, maybe I should just shut up on while I'm ahead. Welcome to day 2 working on the General Electric record player radio, and as you notice, it's in pieces. More rather, the tone arm is. I was thinking about this last night. You know, this works so well, but the wiring to the tone arm is pretty rotten, and I'd rather it be reliable, because it is pretty cool that we've got like a solid working 78 RPM record player. So what I did is I went to the museum and I got this wire, which is actually a little bit skinnier, and it's got, you know, 2 wires and then a shielded cable, which is kind of critical. And so I'm going to replace that, and so that this tone arm should be in good shape. The other thing I'm doing is I'm going to take the platter off and see what's going on with the rubber bits and see if I can lubricate the motor as well, even though it seems to be working okay without me doing anything. Well, it wasn't too bad. I installed the new cable. Those push clips back in. I'm not sure what those are called, those little black things. I took the platter off, and I'm just going to dust this off a little bit, but also I was looking at the record player, and the friction idler pulley has definitely got some dry rot going on. It seemed to work okay, but still, I'm not wild about that. What I might do is dig around in my supplies to see if I have any extras sitting around that aren't as rotten. Whoops, do not want to lose that spring. That would be very, 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 very bad. But yeah, I'm just in here dusting things off a little bit, because after I do this, I'm going to go over it with some furniture products to make it look better. And if you've watched my channel enough, those of you who bear with my crap after year, you know what those products are. So, but for those of you who are new to the channel, you'll find out soon enough. Let me get that spring out of here. I'm just going to dig around on my phono supplies, see if I have any more of those friction wheels. Alright, here's the magic material. It's called Old English. You can buy it at the grocery store or the hardware store. I'm just going to douse this with it, and you can see what it does. It just kind of goes in and does away with a lot of those nasty looking scratches and shit, because it's got stain and other things in it that kind of help them go in and rejuvenate the finish a little bit. And you can see what a huge difference that made. The interior, of course, is perfect because it's been closed up its whole life, but I just go over the whole thing with this stuff, and it just really helps things a lot. Now, that's not the only product I'm going to use. There's always a series of oils and waxes and other things that I want to put into this finish so that it'll stay nicer longer. Because the other thing that you have to also remember is you've got UV and abrasion damage, and there's ways that I can deal with that, but for now I'm just going to go over the whole thing with Old English. Well, while I'm waiting for this to kind of marinate in Old English, unfortunately the original grill fabric's got some very noticeable snags in it, and it just kind of ruins the clean aesthetic. So I'm going to replace the grill fabric, and I've got something that I think will look really nice. It's actually vintage grill fabric. I just need to iron it out, and then I'll install it in the panel. But that panel comes out, I believe, by removing this piece of trim, and then inside I'll have to unfortunately remove the speaker, and there's like 3 screws that hold the bottom of the panel on. Then I'll have to take the whole panel out, measure it, probably remove the chrome, which will allow me to clean the chrome, and then I'll cut the new fabric. Yeah, they're not making it easy on me. Got to take the glass out, and then this is nailed in with tiny little nails. I'm going to have to put this on my workbench, because if I pull those out and lose them on the floor, I'll never see them again. But I got to pin those tabs out and push that out, and then measure. Yeah, I got one chance to cut this out, and I'm not good at cutting things out. I feel like I'm very inaccurate at things. So what I did is I made very heavy lines, and I got the scissors that I'm forbidden to use. It's the hair cutting scissors, and my wife has caught me out here with those scissors a few times, and it makes her very unhappy. But she is several thousand miles away on a business trip, so she will not know about this, and she does not watch this channel, so I'm going to use them and get away with it too. Sometimes maybe I need to have a little more confidence in myself. Anyhow, I was able to reasonably cut that out, and I think it's just because these scissors are so much better. I've been thinking about this a lot lately. A lot of my tools have been with me for decades, and I've repaired hundreds and hundreds of radios, and I think some of them are starting to wear out. So I think it's about time to start retiring tools, and I want to get some more Exolite tools. I love those things, and they still make them. Meanwhile, I'm going to use another old thing. It's my vintage. Well, you know about it. I didn't think about that. It's a General Electric iron. General Electric iron, ironing out grill cloth for a General Electric radio record player. How fitting. This is much younger than the... I think they were still making irons like this when I was a kid. But again, I'm not a spring chicken anymore. Even though a lot of the guys at the museum still endearingly call me the kid. There's some people in our museum that are in their 90s. And some of them are just kind of a real testament to, you know, longevity and taking good care of yourself. Got one member who's 82 or 83, still riding a full-size motorcycle. I only hope that I can be like that. I'm already having aches and pains, but I think it's because I have really shitty posture. So now that I've got that kind of ironed out, I'm going to let it cool down a little bit. Make sure none of the wrinkles come back up, because sometimes when they cool, they'll do that. Actually, you know what? I'm just going to give it just a little more steam. And by the way, with this old rayon stuff, or whatever this is made out of, I'm sure it's not rayon. I'm sure it's something else. Anyway, the synthetic stuff does not like being ironed real hot, which is exactly what I'm doing, so I'm not going to hold on anywhere for too long. So let me get the wood blank, and I'm going to glue it back on there, and then I'll clean up the rest of the cabinet, and it'll be time to work on the record player again. Well, I got it mostly back together, but not completely, but there's something I'm really curious about. I found this recorded disc several years ago, and it says Golden Moments, National Hollywood Recording Disc, Conrad Lynn, Side 2. Well, maybe it needs a little... I'm not sure how these recorded discs work.
Conrad, now this is the second side. Have you practiced the other one yet? If you haven't, turn it over and do the other side first. And don't forget, These I'd like to have you do in the morning and in the night. Do both sides in the morning and both at night. All right, let's continue with the words that we were working on. Kit. Cat. Doll.
Well, clearly it's a children's record of learning about how to... That's kind of disappointing. It's very, very worn out. I have this other really worn out record. It's Teach Your Parakeet How to Talk. Damn it, get on there.
Morning. Good morning. Good morning. Wanna eat? Good morning. Wanna eat?
What the hell?
Good morning. Wanna eat?
Okay, never mind. We don't need to hear any more of that. Let me see if I can... Like, I have no 78 records in the house except these shitty records. So let me see if I find something else to listen to. Hello, today 3 working on the General Electric radio record player, and what I didn't show was that you may have noticed that some of the records didn't sound very good, and at first I thought, well, maybe it's because it's one of those older records from the 20s where they didn't have electronic reproduction well established, but the radio didn't sound very good either, and what it turned out being was that the output tube, I think, was gassy. I'm going to put that to a test. I've had this on for a while now.
Now, boy, say you ain't acting fair. You know about that, you got real bad hair. Your face is all here now, your back's all bare. If you ain't doing the bobo, what your head doing down now, you's a dirty mistreat. Robbing a cheat, slippy in the dirt. Now your papa is your cousin, and your mom.
That's quite a record. I'm very careful. I get a feeling that might be a rare record. Boogie Woogie Piano. Pioneer Piano Man. Cow Davenport. Recorded in 1929. Wow, it's almost 100 years old. I'm going to put that away. That proves that the record player works. I'm just going to leave it on for a while I water my plants, and if I come back and it still sounds good, then I'm going to guess that was the case. It was a gassy tube. Last night what it was, I just guessed. I was like, if it's sounding like that, that sounds like an output problem. And it sounds to me like the fact that it started out sounding okay, but then degraded as a heat-related problem. So either it's a resistor or it's a tube. And since both of the main power resistors that were in that set had faulty leads and I replaced them, they're good. So probably it was a tube. And hey, Winky, I gotta go feed Winky. So let me do that.
Your papa is your cousin, and your mama do the Lord is
Okay, well, it's been running for about 45 minutes.
St. Maximilian Colby gave the ultimate sacrifice. Radio and Mount Herman. Crypt your online traffic and help you avoid phishing, scams, and malware. Get the special North...
All right. Whoopee! Not my favorite record. You know what? We had probably about 500 pounds of 78 RPM records about a year ago. They were mostly symphony records. And we tried to give them away. Literally sat there with a free sign for months. Free! could not get anyone to take them, so I had to sadly admit we threw away a bunch of records. Unfortunately, there's just absolutely hardly any collectability when it comes to a lot of these 78s, unfortunately. Now, there's people that collect them for sure, and there's some that are worth a small fortune, and some that are rare, but a vast majority of them are records like this, where it's some sort of symphonic waltz, not to mention it's got a crack in it, so. But it's enough to prove that that's still working the way I want it to, and that the tube was indeed the problem. I need to make sure and throw away that tube. Probably what happened is that I took it out with some other radio because it was doing the same thing, and I've forgotten to put it back in my drawer. Anyway, folks, oh yeah, I did put the antenna on the back on. It's got a new power cord too. It's about as good as you're going to get with something of this here. We got new cartridge, new needle, new capacitors, a couple new tubes, well, new old stock tubes, new grill fabric, new wiring for the phono, all that jazz. So anyway, that kind of concludes this episode of Radiorama, and thank you much for sticking by and watching. So until the next time something comes across my workbench, I'll see you guys later. Bye-bye.